So, this was me a few short years ago. And like all good Americans, I wanted to make a lot of money. And I did that. By age 29, I'd made my first million. And by age 31, I'd managed to lose it all. Thank you. So I did something that I'd always wanted to do, and I lived out of my backpack and I traveled the world. My travels took me first to Australia, that big island in the southern hemisphere, that I wolfed on organic farms and I built mud houses. I got my hands dirty and I met incredible people doing incredible things all along the way. Then I wandered into a permaculture design course. This is at Southern Cross Permaculture Institute in southeastern Australia, and it is a 15-acre farm that has been restored from a degraded swampland. In fact, the land is so fertile there that Rick and Naomi thought that they were not able to have children. They now have 4. Crazy. So my classmates and I here, this is presenting our student design to Ron and Bev Smith. Ron and Bev Smith have one of the most beautiful, amazing organic dairy farms on the planet. They actually grow topsoil at the rate of 1 inch per year, which soil scientists thought was not possible. But we're going to revisit Ron and Bev Smith a little later on. I should probably explain what permaculture is. Well, permaculture is a framework for sustainable design that was developed in the 70s by Australians Bill Mollison and David Holmgren. So Bill Mollison was wandering the old-growth rainforests of Tasmania, as you do, and he noticed that, look, in this 1 acre of rainforest, there is so much more productivity than in any comparable acre of man-made agricultural systems. What's going on here? And he started to set out to distill a framework of design principles that we could use to start designing and redesigning our own agricultural systems. Hence the word permaculture. Perma from permanent, culture from agriculture. Permanent agriculture. What a concept. So, as I'm sitting in this class, that old analytical part of my brain that served me so well when I was a capitalist kicks in, and I said, this just can't be true. It can't be as good as that. So I thought, look, I'm going to have to put this to the test. And off I went to, oops, not there, Mongolia. Minus 40 degrees Celsius in the winter, plus 40 degrees Celsius in the summer. That's 104 degrees Fahrenheit for all of you Yankees. 90-day growing season, 1/4 inch or less of topsoil in most areas. It is one of the most extreme places in the world. I finagled myself as a volunteer on a project that introduced permaculture design to Mongolia. Why? Well, Mongolians, as you probably know, are not the world's most famous vegetarians. So they eat primarily a meat and milk diet because it makes sense. The meat that the livestock herds provide will survive through the winter, so it's their energy store for the winter. However, grazing patterns that are thousands of years old are literally no longer viable, and the herds have died off in the millions over the last decade from what is called Zud, a white drought of an unseasonably high precipitation event that creates snow so deep that the animals literally cannot dig down to the grass below and they starve. Mongolians are remarkably resilient people. I mean, you have to be to survive minus 40 in the winter. And these are some very tough Mongolian women who are learning how to grow potatoes in northwestern Mongolia, Zavkhan province. We got to within 20 kilometers of the Siberian border here. And potatoes make sense to grow in a climate like this. Why? Because they can last through the winter. Now, we must have done something right there because in March of this year, they decided to hire me back, the non-government organization that brought us in. And this is the culmination of our launch of a 4-year project called the Sustainable Economic and Agriculture Learning Project in Bayanogi, which is westernmost province of Mongolia, high in the Altai Gobi Mountains. Now spot the local boy here. Big fluffy hat and a massive jacket. It was a balmy minus 15 Celsius. I think that's about 5 Fahrenheit. So what lies beyond sustainability? Well, do you remember when sustainability was a word that was only uttered by long-haired, unshaven, hippie, tree hugger types? I mean, look, let's take a closer look at this word sustainability. Now, if I tell you, my wife and I have a sustainable relationship, what am I saying about the quality of our relationship? I mean, why don't we use words like flourishing or nurturing or regenerative? Or what if I was to tell you my relationship with my wife is freaking awesome? I mean, if we were to start talking about this, what kind of world could we create? So what lies beyond sustainability? Regenerative design, which emulates healthy and productive ecological systems to create human systems which increasingly flourish over time. You see, in nature, nothing is wasted, right? Tree drops a leaf, becomes a nutrient for the soils, which feeds the tree again, and the cycle repeats. So what can we learn from nature to design or redesign our enterprises so that they maximize their positive impact on the planet? Does anyone have any water? I've just got a really bad case of dry mouth. It's horrible. Okay. Thank you. I can talk and drink at the same time. So, bingo. Thank you. Oh boy, I'm gonna get in all sorts of trouble from Jane after this. Thank you. All right. So, remember Ron and Bev Smith? Well, let me introduce you to some of the world's happiest cows. Okay. Now, over 30 years ago, Ron Smith was actually getting sick because of the conventional farming methods use a lot of superphosphates and chemical pesticides. So Bev, his wife, said, honey, you're not doing that anymore. And he went out and he read every single possible book he could find on organic and natural farming methods. And so now he's founded Pure Organics, which is an organic dairy cooperative. Anyone here from Australia ever tasted this milk? It is unbelievable. The freshest, purest, most organic milk that you can get a hold of. And it is one of the only bright spots in the Australian agricultural sector of the economy. So while his enterprise is posting solid growth rates and profits year over year, steadily growing at a healthy clip, surrounding conventionally farmed dairies are struggling with decreasing pasture fertility, increasing cost of feed, fertilizer, and pesticides, and disappearing profit margins. This was my introduction to a concept of a regenerative business. Because all of this, and he grows topsoil at the rate of 1 inch per year, how does he do that? Well, this is the pasture that we walked. And Ron's pastures, it's like walking a big salad bar. So as we walked, we plucked plants of plantain and chicory, and we plucked the sweet clover flowers that you see here. And we were munching them happily right alongside with the happy cows that you saw earlier. I mean, what a concept. A business that is profitable and that maximizes its positive impact on the planet. And he did this because first he took care of himself. Once he did that, he could take care of his land, and profits were just a natural result. Ron's profits are the economic surplus of a well-managed enterprise. So, again, the old capitalist part of my brain kicks in and said, well, what if we were to start adapting and applying these permaculture design principles to the context of designing or redesigning our business and enterprise? What kind of world could we create? So far, I've articulated 6 principles of regenerative business. The first principle is that a regenerative business invests in regenerative assets. This is a petrol-powered pump in use in northwestern Mongolia to get water from the riverbed up to the crop field. Now, at first glance, it's an asset, right? Costs a lot of money, it's big, it's shiny, makes a lot of noise, performs a very, very important function. Well, let's stop and think about that for a minute, because if their crop should fail or the veggie market should crash and they lose their income, does this asset feed them or does it eat them? Well, a ram pump has 2 moving parts, uses the inertia of the flowing water from the river to move water incrementally up the hill. A ram pump, over time, will create far more energy than it took to create and install that asset. A ram pump is an example of a regenerative asset. A regenerative business invests in regenerative assets. A regenerative enterprise also contributes to communities. What you're watching here is a time-lapse of Permablitz Hawai'i, which is a grassroots movement that is restoring Hawaii's food security one backyard at a time. A team of volunteers have swarmed a parking lot behind Sweet Home Waimanalo Cafe and turned the back of a parking lot into an edible landscape in one day. In fact, the neighbor in the back fence over there looked over and was like, what are you crazy people doing? And how do I get this done here? We're like, it's easy. Come help 3 other families get edible landscapes installed in their backyards. And you know what? The network can turn around and we can help you. Oops. That's the mandala kitchen garden that we installed behind Sweet Home. Go and check it out. The third thing a regenerative business does is it collaborates before it competes. This is one of our permablitzers, Justin Franzmeier, all-around awesome guy, and the founder of Island Foodscaping, which designs and installs edible landscapes for the community of Hawaii. Now, as a permaculturist returning to the islands of Hawaii, the logical business for me to start would be what? Edible landscaping business, of course. Well, there's no need for me to reinvent the wheel and spend all of this time, money, and energy, and the money I don't have, to set up shop across the street from him and start competing, especially when he's laid a solid foundation. And lucky for me, Justin is a really forward-thinking guy, and he thought, yeah, brah, I'd do that with you. And so now I freelance as a designer for his company, helping him to grow his business while we help families that don't have the time to come out and participate at 3 blitzes to get their own edible landscape designed and installed. A regenerative business competes. A regenerative business collaborates before it competes. A regenerative business also competes constructively because, let's face it, it's human nature. We are competitive beings. But there are 2 ways that we can compete, 2 types of competition. The first is destructive competition, and we've seen the results of that. You just have to look at the ongoing financial crises and bailouts and the whole shenanigans that go on there. Destructive competition at all costs does not work, okay? But constructive competition works. So this is an architectural model that I built for a buddy of mine, Gary Hironaka. Gary builds and operates elder care homes, which is a huge need in the community at the moment. Now, when Gary approached me to help him with building this business out, he said, Matt, I want to set the standard of how elder care is delivered in Hawaii. I said, okay, well, good thing we live on a small island. I can go out and physically visit each and every adult residential care home that they've built in the class that you want to build in. So we knew what was out there, exactly what was out there, the best and the worst of it. And then, once we'd established a benchmark, Gary knew what he needed to do to build to a new standard. And in doing so, what has he done? He's raised the bar for everybody. A regenerative business competes constructively. A regenerative business also crafts lasting products and delivers remarkable services. This is not a luxury resort. This is an elder care home. Now, the caregivers that take care of our residents here, when we met them, they were living in a 10 by 12-foot room with 2 young children and expected to provide a high level of care for their charges. You see, now they live in palatial, in luxury. It's beautiful. And why? Because Gary understands that if he crafts a lasting product, then his people can deliver remarkable services. A regenerative business crafts lasting products and delivers remarkable services. Excuse me, I need to drink some water. Oh, man. Am I still on? Good. The 6th principle of a regenerative business is that a regenerative business looks after people, planet, and profits. In that order. I mean, look at Ron's example. It was only by taking care of his own health that he was able to become a good steward of his own land. Let's zoom out a little bit further here. On the right of the frame is the palace that our caregivers and our elder care residents live in. On the left is a 3,000 square foot fish house. Now, what on earth does a fish house, a fish farm, and an elder care home have to do with each other? Well, let's take a closer look and explore this from a sustainability perspective. So, fish farming is a very energy-intensive process. It requires lots of water and lots of electricity. So the first thing we do is maybe we catch some water off of the roof, put a rain tank here. Next thing that we do, maybe we put some solar panels on, start to generate our own electricity. Now, the next thing we need to deal with is the waste stream. Fish poop. Newsflash. Vegetables love fish poop. So we can start to redirect that waste resource and use it as an input or a nutrient for another valuable element in our system. And we can start to grow food on site for the animals and humans that are living there. Let's take it even further. This area right here is where the contractor basically dumped all of the rubble. So it's very poor soils, rocky, compacted. There's no nutrient value in that at all. But we can grow some vegetables there. Let me show you how. Now here Gary is turning bad news into food by using newspapers as a biodegradable weed mat to keep the weeds down. We're taking horse poop mixed with sawdust that we got from a neighboring stable, and we're using that as a lovely mulch top dressing, which over a year or so will break down to a really rich, beautiful topsoil. The PVC piping that you see there was just scrap that was lying around the fish farm. This is the completed grow bed. We've installed a reed bed here in an effort to filter the water. It's right off the concrete pad here, which is where he rinses his equipment. So we're taking steps to make sure that we are good stewards of the land that we're entrusted in. This here is about 2 months later, and we've selected root crops such as taro, one, because I love it, it's ono, and two, because it provides a function for us. It actually, that massive taro tuber, say that 5 times fast, will break up the compacted soils below. So we've got 3 different types of taro, 2 different types of ginger, 2 different types of sweet potato, and a whole bunch of other crops that are hidden in there. And the other good thing is we get a delicious, yummy, yummy, yummy yield. We get to eat all our food. So Gary's using biological agents that he found on his own land to affect this change. Now this was taken on Friday. And this is about 6 months later. The taro, as you can see, is very happy, almost ready for harvest. Right? So, number of things going on here. First, Gary is reducing food miles literally to across the driveway. Right? Second thing he's doing is he is improving the quality of life of his elder care residents because we're providing fresh, local fish and vegetables right on the spot. And the third thing he's doing is he is regenerating degraded soils. He is taking steps to restore his environment, a regenerative business. Now, in my favorite TED Talk of all time, Viktor Frankl quotes the German poet Goethe, who said, "If we take man as he should be, we make him capable of what he can become." What is our most regenerative asset? Human beings are the only species on the planet that are capable of acting as stewards, of leaving this place better for having walked on it. We're the only species that can do that. Our most regenerative asset, our most powerful regenerative asset, is our imagination. I believe that it's about time we started to talk about moving beyond sustainability. What kind of a world could we create if instead of trying to minimize and create a zero impact, we could design and redesign our businesses and enterprises to maximize our positive impact on the planet? Thank you very much.